Hey everybody, FIM here with the continuation of the experiments of Twilight Sparkle. We're going to do Chapter 3, possibly Chapter 4. We'll see what we can fit into one reading, but anyways, without further ado, let's start this. Author's note: this chapter is the most like cupcakes. Wonderful. Alright, Chapter 3, Party Time. Miss Sparkle continued with the party pony. By now, Pinkie had lost a significant amount of nutrients carrying bodily fluid, as she was evident by the red puddle on the floor below her. Twilight used her hoof to lift one of the flaps of Pinkie's flesh and meat made by her huge Y-shaped wound on her underside. She stretched, compressed, and wiggled the mass of meat and skin as if she were studying it. Pinkie let out a whine of great discomfort with each burning stretch and twist. Fluttershy shouted, "Leave Pinkie alone! You're hurting her badly. Just listen to her cries of pain. Doesn't that say anything to you?" "Oh, she's just being Pinkie Pie," was Twilight's response. Fluttershy continued, "Why did you cut Pinkie's belly open? She's your friend." "I told you this is for science," Twi answered. "She is my friend. That is why we will learn together. I opened Pinkie because if I'm going to remove her brain to study it, I may as well remove the rest of her organs first." The 5 ponies were utterly shocked at what they had just heard. Twilight then wore a gleeful face. "Once we're done learning about Pinkie Pie, then we shall move on to AJ, Rainbow Dash, Fluttershy, and then Rarity. When we are finished, more will be known about the magic of friendship than ever before." All of them were breathing heavily and fast. Their hearts were pounding. Panic was in the air. "I'll be back in a sec," said Twilight. They all shouted and yelled pleas of mercy just as Twilight left the room. Upon returning, she dragged a huge multi-layered cart with an array of glass containers filled with a clear liquid. The 5 ponies were petrified at the freaky and unnerving sights before them. Some jars had active pony organs already inside of them. The hearts were still beating, the lungs were still expanding and compressing, stomachs were still contracting their muscles, as if the liquid in the containers was some sort of bioelectricity inducing substance. The glass bottles had labels on them. They labeled the type of organs that were in them, the ponies they belonged to. The horrified mares read the labels. Some empty ones, but still with liquid, read Pinkie Pie. Some containing organs read Blue October, Pokey Pierce, and Apple Bloom. Applejack's world was further crushing down. "You killed her! You killed my kid sister! She was just a little helpless filly!" Tears were flowing down her cheeks. I am really too tired to scream or anything, but it is in all caps. The killer explained, "Well, yeah, I needed practice before I got to Pinkie. Much of science is trial and error." AJ's throat moistened and she found it hard to swallow. All sorts of intense emotions ran through her. Shock, fear, despair, rage. "You know," Twilight went on, "it's interesting. This taboo of society. Ponies are always more sensitive about young foals being hurt and killed. Why do you think that is?" Twilight looked at everyone. "And finally, we can start the lesson." Twilight grabbed a huge metal silver nail and a hammer from the open metal case. Pinkie didn't want to know what the unicorn was going to use them for. "Twilight, no! No, please, no!" After resting the nail's tip on the inside of one of the flaps of meat, oh God! Twilight leaned over and kissed Pinkie on the forehead. Then she swung the hammer and it hit its target. The nail pinned down one of Pinkie's flaps of skin to the table. The nail rested in a hole pre-embedded in the table. That's gotta be the most painful thing in the world. Pinkie felt a high concentration of activated pain receptors. Twi took 2 more out and hammered them to pin down the flap more securely. Pinkie let out a high-pitched shriek with each sudden blood-squirting stab into the meat and flesh. Taking 3 more nails, she did the same to the flap on the pink pony's other side. This let Pinkie's rib cage and bottom organs expose. Rarity felt nauseous, but Twilight wasn't finished. Oh man, I went through cupcakes and didn't cringe, and this is making me cringe. Oh, it sounds so painful, and I know it would be painful because, you get cut open, and the tissue and the muscle and everything hasn't died yet. So it's like you can still feel pain through there, and the nerves haven't died yet. It's like, oh God, that'd be so painful. Alright. She took out a small circular saw out of the box. It was a bone cutter. She turned it on and pushed the spinning saw into the bottom of Pinky's blood-covered sternum. The loud cutting noise could be heard throughout the dungeon. Sawing straight up through the hard chest bone, countless red drops sprayed into Pinky's tear-soaked face and on Twilight's white surgeon's apron and mask. The crying, begging, and pleading for the purple unicorn to stop from the 4 other ponies were relentless. Applejack pleaded, anything at all, name it, we'll do it. Please, just stop this. Rainbow Dash implored, no more. No. Rarity shouted, we love you, Pinky. We'll get you out of this, I swear. Fluttershy was, of course, crying the hardest. Pinkie Pie was your friend. How could you do this to poor Pinky? Please, put her back together. But they didn't seem to face Twilight at all, except for her horn, which looked as though it sharpened. Oh no. Oh no. With Pinky's sternum split, the surgeon unicorn inserted a rib spreader into the crevice and turned the lever enough to push the 2 half-sternums apart, leaving Pinky's beating heart and expanding and compressing lungs in plain sight. Pinky was too frightened to look down. Twilight locked the lever in place. Next, she brought out what looked like a large basting bulb and explained, see this? It contains alcohol. I'm going to pour it all over your exposed internal organs to prevent infection. You don't expect me to experiment on infected organs, do you? This is going to sting. A lot. Brace yourself. Oh, God. Oh, no. No, Twi, no. Pinky spoke weakly from blood loss, her face wet with blood and tears, as if Twilight didn't even hear her. She squirted the infernal liquid all over poor Pinky's bare insides. Sting! The pain was so intense it looked like nothing she had ever suffered before. Deafening, blood-curdling screams of sheer agony echoed off the walls. This is not right, cried the suffering mare. Twilight repeatedly rubbed her cheeks against the sobbing victims and gave some kisses in between. Shh, 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 shh. It's okay. It's going to be all right. The 4 other captives were in such trauma, they couldn't stand seeing their best friend in so much pain. Pinky looked so weak and helpless, it was too much for them to handle. Fluttershy threw up and then blacked out. Twilight removed her mask. Now, this is when we learn about Pinky's mentality. She floated a linked feather and scroll to herself. Twi put her face right up to Pinky's. Hey, Pinkie Pie. Pinky weakly glanced at her captor. Miss Sparkle's eyes went wide as she spoke, with a big, happy smile. Guess what? I killed Apple Bloom. I killed her. And I'm going to kill you, too. And it makes me happy. Your cutie mark does not lie. Your parties do give ponies smiles. And what a party this is. Tell me, how does all this make you feel emotionally? Does it change your view of the world we live in? Unicorn waited for a response from the miserable pink pony. After a few moments, the crying, pitiful pony started to sing. Giggle at the ghosty, guffaw at the grossly, crack up at the creepy, whoop it up with the weepy, chortle at the kooky, snortle at the spooky. When she finished, Twilight spoke with intrigue. First off, I'm going to say I'm sorry if my singing isn't that great. It's really cold in here and I'm not feeling all that great, so you guys can be happy that I'm even reading and singing for you. Anyways, continuing on. When she finished, Twilight spoke with intrigue. Interesting. You truly are the carrier of the element of laughter. But laughing can only help you so far in dire situations like this. And you need to learn that. Twilight's irises fluctuated between dark red and bright red as she picked up the bone cutter. She started sawing around Pinky's hind legs just above the knee. Pinky screamed from the painful slicing of her muscle. Oh. She felt like she could do nothing to stop this, not even laughing. See, Oh, God. The knees. Oh, man. Nope. I'm going to keep reading. This is... it's making me a little queasy, but it's not like gore affects me or anything. But it's just... whenever you're, like, watching a movie and something happens to the character and you almost feel it, like, say their finger gets cut off and your finger starts hurting. It's one of those things. It's just, that's why I'm like, oh, yeah. Anyways. With more blood spatter, the spinning blade cut the bone thin enough to snap, which is exactly what Twilight did. Oh, God. And the pink leg fell into the giant tree trunk floor. Oh, my God, that's a tongue twister. Making another mess of blood. Twilight Sparkle squirted more stinging alcohol onto the newly made injury and the severed leg. Putting the red dripping limb into a tray on the cart, she asked, "Do you still think giggling at the ghosties will save you now, Pink?" Pinky gave up hope. No. Twilight addressed everyone, making sure they were listening. "That's it. We learned something about our friend Pinky. And that is that. Under such horrific circumstances like this, she concludes that laughter will not always make the monster disappear. But we are not done. There's more to be learned about Pinky." When she was finished, she put back on her surgical mask, readied the glass containers, then sterilized her hooves. The ponies made one last attempt to reason with the heartless horse. Applejack tried first. "Twi, you don't have to do this. It's not too late. Just stitch Pink back together." Dash spoke. Yeah, Twi, she's your friend. We know you really don't want to do this." Rarity was next. "We don't know what has gotten into you, but please let us help you. We can help. We love you, dear." Twilight was grateful for their offer. "Thank you all. You are my friends." But there was a spark of hope in them. Twilight's eyes turned an even brighter red than before. "But there is nothing wrong with me." Everyone's hearts sank. Then came the begging and sobbing again. Twilight did not seem to care as she opened the bottle and grabbed the party pony's stomach. Pinkie Pie felt sick to the stomach, that is, until Twilight gave it a good yank out of her, carrying with it part of the esophagus. "Ugh!" reacted Pinkie. Twilight immediately put the digestive organ into the preservative fluid-filled jar and closed the lid. Twilight made a discovery. "Well, you had a big stomach, which is to be explained since you ate a lot of goods." Twilight went for her liver next. "This organ is rich with blood." Twilight proceeded with the pancreas, gallbladder, spleen, and small intestine, giving brief facts about them as she did. The mares could not believe nor understand what they were witnessing. Twilight Sparkle, their very close and dear friend, was seemingly out of nowhere removing the internal organs of an innocent fellow pony. Rarity's nausea was worsening till it was too much. Her stomach erupted, and she vomited several times in a row, making a big, strong, odored mess of bile all over her body and floor. At this point, they felt all hope was lost for their pink friend. They felt so sad. They loved Pinky so much. Interestingly enough, Pinky is so healthy, and considering how many sweets she consumes. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. I'm guessing it's how she hops around a lot, using those muscles. Twilight said, briefly studying Pinky's long intestine before folding it into a glass jar. Twilight dipped the bloody blade into a bowl of alcohol to clean it. After giving Pinky's vulva a few good rubs, she used the scalpel to pierce the skin of the lying pony's groin. Pinky could feel a very sharp tool easily dig into her meat. The determined surgeon started curving out sensitive genitals very slowly and carefully as to not damage any internal parts of the pink pony's sex organ. Pinky's awareness faded. Once finished, she lifted the blood-dripping, severed privet part. I'm supposing that's supposed to be private part with caution. The vulva, vagina, cervix, uterus, fallopian tubes, and ovaries, all still connected. I knew that word looked familiar. See, I've told you I'm tired and not feeling all that great. Reproduction, very important. Twilight poured alcohol onto Pinky's disembodied marehood and placed the entire reproduction system into a vacant container and sealed it tight. She then spilled the alcohol into Pinky's genitalless crotch. "Wake up, Pink." The mutilated horse was very weak, but the sting still managed to wake her up. "You don't want to miss your last lesson in life," said Twilight as she prepared for the final incision. "I'll remove your lungs and heart after, so you can witness the lecture on your brain before I take it out." Sad, confused, crying, and in tremendous discomfort, Pinky lost the will to hope. She was just waiting for it to end. A sharp, painful pinching sensation was felt as the scalpel cut across the small pink horse's forehead and around the cranium. The wincing pony's forehead was oozing out red liquid. Twilight peeled off the flesh from the top of the head, taking a part of Pinky's poofy pink mane with it, causing her to scream. Next, using the bone cutter, Twi sawed through the skull bone along the incision of the skin. Making a complete circle around the top of the head, she lifted the head bone piece off, exposing Pinky's tender brain. Pinky braced herself as Twilight squirted more alcohol onto the brain. The sensation was that of an immense, heavy, pounding headache all over the surface of her thinking organ, and Twilight, caressing it with her hoof, wasn't helping. Then the purple unicorn applied her magic to levitate a kind of brainwave analyzing device to her. She put it up to Pink's head. Isn't this interesting? The left temporal lobe is just as active as the right. I expected the left side to be far less active. Would you ever forgive me for taking you to be a moron, Pinky? Pinky was too weak and in too much agony to be mad, or even care about the cold words escaping from her tormentor's mouth. And thus concludes our learning of Pinky. Terrified mares knew what was coming. They could not bear to watch, yet they couldn't look away. Twilight Sparkle took hold of the lungs. Streams of tears profusely flowed from Rainbow Dash's eyes. "This isn't the Twilight Sparkle we knew." Twilight hesitated for a moment, but then pulled on the lung until it disconnected from Pinky. Everyone cried even harder. Pinky, already struggling to breathe, found it much harder to take in the oxygen with only one lung. "No's" and "pleases" reverberated through the basement laboratory. Twilight placed both of her hooves on the only lung Pinky had left. Twilight was hesitant again. She started sweating and breathing heavily, using her magic to levitate her fizzing liquid-filled laboratory flask up to her mouth. She took a chug of it, and then forced out the last means Pinky had to breathe. Within about 4 minutes, Pinkie Pie passed out from lack of oxygen. They knew it. Her friends knew that in a few moments the inevitable would happen to the blood-covered pony. After a short passing of time, they saw the beating of Pinkie Pie's visible heart stop. Her eyes slowly closed. The brain activity ceased. They so desperately didn't want to face the ugly fact, but they had no choice. Their friend Pinkie Pie was dead. And at 18 minutes, I think I'm going to stop this here. I'll probably put up another video right after this one goes up, so enjoy 1 or 2 videos tonight, guys, and I'll see you in the next part.